Welcome along to this week's A Story to Tell with me, Richard Beauvoisin. This week we have Mary Kyte on the show. She's a focus puller, so someone that's behind the cameras. And we found out all about working on Death in Paradise in the Caribbean, going right back to working on the very first Harry Potter film. Hope you enjoy it. This is Mary Kyte on A Story to Tell. So welcome along. It's Richard Beauvoisin here on Radio Bath, here till midday today. Today I've got a fabulous guest called Mary Kyte. She's the first AC or focus puller on TV or film sets. Also a great dancer and a fab lady too. She's currently working on the set of Death in Paradise in the Caribbean. And I can see out the back, we're doing this via Zoom, I can see out the back palm trees. So Mary, first of all, good morning. And how is it in the Caribbean?
Good morning, Richard. Well, it's very hot and very humid, and my thermometer outside is telling me it's 33 degrees in the shade.
That sounds nice. We're quite happy here today in that we've kind of got some grey skies, but at least it's not too cold.
It will get warmer.
Hopefully. So, which Caribbean island are you on?
We're on the French island of Guadeloupe, which is the island for the fictitious island of Saint-Marie in Death in Paradise.
We all thought it was real.
The camera never lies.
No, it is amazing, isn't it? We'll come to Death in Paradise a bit later, but it is amazing how many bad things happen in such a small place.
I know, it's obviously not a safe place to be because there's a murder, seems to be every week.
Who would move there, eh? So yeah, I mentioned you're a first AC or a focus puller. I'll be honest, when I did the research about you, and there's lots online about you, Mary. I'm not sure if you were aware of everything. I had to actually look up what a first AC or a focus puller was. So tell us what exactly that means.
First and foremost, as the title suggests, it's pulling focus. So it means I'm keeping the subject in focus all the time. So within the parameters of the shot. Also, it means interpreting the script because it's not always obvious where you might want the focus to be. So keeping certain things sharp at a certain time can convey a slightly different story. I work closely with the camera operator and the director of photography and also the director in the storytelling process. It's very much a teamwork thing. On a more practical level, essentially I run the camera department, the equipment, making sure that my team looks after the equipment properly, that we have the right things at the right time in the right place. So in a nutshell, that's the basic kind of role and function.
And how long have you been doing it for?
Oh my goodness me, a very, very, very long time. Dare I say it, coming up to about 40 years.
Blimey.
Yes, I am that old.
I'm guessing it's changed over the years. Has technology changed much in that time?
Oh, goodness me, totally. Working on film, as in celluloid film, is completely different to working on digital. It can be incredibly stressful because the parameters in digital are far more, or can be far more precise. And these days with increasingly demanding schedules, you don't really have much time for rehearsals. So it can be a little bit stressful knowing that you've got to get it right every time from the very first go, and that can be quite tricky.
Yeah, that does sound skillful. I've heard, so I was talking to somebody about it very recently, and they said, although it's not that well known a job from the outside world, and it's kind of not necessarily that high profile a job, it's actually one of the most skillful jobs on set. Were they right? Can you say that about yourself?
Well, of course I'm going to say that. Certainly in film, because you don't know till the following day when you get to see what's called the rushes or the dailies, you don't actually know if you've nailed that shot until the following day. So in that respect, it can be quite tricky, because you've got to know whether or not you got it right. In a lot of other areas, if something's not quite right, you can get away with it. But if the focus is a bit sharp, and you'll see it sometimes, you know, when you have very minimal, what's called depth of field. So very little in the frame that's going to be sharp. It could just be one eyeball. You know, if somebody's slightly tilted one way, you can only keep one eyeball sharp. So when you're dealing with somebody that's moving around with that amount of latitude for keeping it sharp, that can be very tricky. And if you get it wrong, you can't use the shot. Whereas other things, if it's slightly wrong, you can get away with it. It might not look quite as nice, or might not be perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. It's all about compromise. But certainly with focus, there is no room for compromise. And that's what makes it a little bit tricky and stressful.
So have all films been ruined for you now because you're watching them with a kind of an expert eye going, oh, how's the focus on that shot?
To a certain extent, mostly I just watch a film for the enjoyment of it. And to me, the sign of a good film is if I'm not aware of the camera, if I'm not aware of the process, because I'm drawn into the story. So for me, that makes it a good, successfully shot film. If I suddenly start to notice things and therefore I'm taken out of the story, then that's where it's wrong. And for me, that is the whole kind of filming process and storytelling process.
It's a bit like a referee in football, isn't it? If you don't notice them, they're probably doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you've been doing this for 40 years or so. So how did you get into it?
Slightly through the back door.
Okay.
I was already working at the BBC. I eventually ended up in a department called Film Department. In administration, I was what was called a film operations assistant, whereby each genre in BBC television, you'd have music and arts, drama series and serials, current affairs, Open University, education. So as a department, we would do all the filming elements of those. So maybe the film inserts for a light entertainment show, for example, absolutely fabulous, or other things would be full-on dramas. So everything would be shot on film from our department. For example, some of the things I did, which some people may remember, was something called Our Friends in the North.
Oh, yeah.
It was quite popular. I did another series, a lovely John Mortimer series called, oh God, my brain's gone numb there, called Summer's Lease.
Okay.
So all those were shot all on film. So we did the whole story rather than just little inserts for studio-based stuff. So that was how I learned about the equipment and the crewing and part of the process. So from there, I initially thought I'd like to do that job, but I didn't think the lifestyle would suit me, all that traveling around and being away from home. It doesn't suit everybody. And I don't know how or why there became a turnaround where I suddenly thought, actually, this is what I'd like to do, and this is what I think I would be good at. Even though there were very few women at that time doing that. I mean, could count them on the fingers of one hand. But I was suddenly focused, pardon the pun, that was what I wanted to do. And I thought, I can do this. So cut a long story short, I went out, did my homework, went out with the crews on set, learned how to do it. Finally got onto the trainee scheme, the technical training scheme, to be a camera assistant, even though I was told initially, oh, no, surely you don't want to do that. You know, girls don't do that. You know, perhaps you'd like to go into editing. I said, well, sitting inside a box in 4 square walls, seeing no daylight is not exactly my idea of a barrel of fun. It suits other people. It wouldn't suit me. So I kind of did it against all advice, really, because I believed I could do it. So I did it.
That sounds good. It sounds good. So if somebody wanted to get into it these days, then how would they go about it?
You know what? There's an awful lot of luck. I get lots of emails from people just graduating from university, having done media studies. Doing media studies it's an academic qualification. It takes a certain kind of person to work in our industry and to do what we do. So I can take somebody from the street, and within half an hour, I can tell if they've got the right attitude and aptitude to do the job. A lot of it is personality driven. It is very hard to get into it, but once you've got your first gig, if you like, then you're up and running. The hard thing is getting that first gig as a trainee. And the first thing to learn is how to make a good cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and be happy to do it and do it well. Because if you can't do that well, if you're an aspiring director, photographer, operator, what have you, if you can't do that well, if you think that's below you, then you are not going to make it as a DOP, because you'll be always asked to do things that you don't like or are not happy with, or you think is below you. If you can't do it making a cup of tea, you'll never do it at the top of the chain.
So if I wanted to come to you, you're the right person to get a cup of tea then?
Funnily enough, probably yes, because even now, if you want to do something, do it well.
Yeah.
Do it to the best of your ability. Do it so somebody will appreciate it.
And after 40 years of doing the job, are you still making the tea, or do you have trainees now to do that?
Well, funnily enough, I must make my own cup of tea because I know how I like it. But if I'm in a position and available to go and get a cup of tea or a bottle of water or a cup of coffee from someone of my team who's less able to get offset, I will happily do it.
Fair enough. Now, as we mentioned earlier, that technology has changed quite dramatically over the years regarding being a focus puller or a first AC. How do you see it kind of evolving in the future, and how much do you reckon that will affect how you do and what you do?
It is still, I would say that the new technology is still a voyage of discovery. It has gone through a period of evolvement. When digital technology was first started to be widely used, a lot of people didn't really fully understand what a focus puller did. And I think there were a few issues, shall we say. Then after a few years, I think people began to realize the value and exactly what a focus puller did and what they can bring to the job. So focus pullers then became more involved again. There are a new breed of focus pullers who are coming up, who can do what we call pull off a monitor. So they will actually they don't even need to be in the same room as the camera and the actor. They are able to see the image on a monitor and keep it sharp from that. And they're very good at it, and I have no idea how they do it. The way I do it, and any film trained focus pullers, you will always be somewhere near the camera, so you can assess the distance from the camera, more specifically the film plane, so it's where the image hits the film plane, to the actor or the subject. And you are always constantly judging that distance, and you are responding to the actor moving and the camera moving, because sometimes they're moving at the same time. So your parameters are changing second by second. So you are keeping it sharp as you go along on the fly, as it were. Sometimes we do what's called winging it. So you might have a couple of reference points of a distance, and then you use that reference point to judge if somebody's getting closer or further apart. And that's when you have to have your mojo and work on your instinct and intuition.
Do you know what you say about winging it? But I think what other people would say is that skill. So it's two different ways of looking at it, isn't it? So yeah, the winging it is actually where you're off script and you're not just having set parameters in place. It's
Yes.
more about using your judgment and your skill sets that you've gained over those 40 years to actually make the shot work. But we're going to have a quick break for music. But when we come back, we're going to find out actually about where you are and also about Death in Paradise as well. We can't give anything away, I'm afraid, about the current series, but we'll definitely find out much more about Death in Paradise. So back with Mary Kyte after this.
Made locally in Bath. This is Radio Bath.
Right, we're back now on Radio Bath. It's me, Richard Beauvoisin, here until midday today. We've got Mary Kyte, who is a focus puller, a camera. Can I call you a camera? What do you call it? Camera lady? Camera? Because it used to be cameraman, didn't it? But you can't do that anymore, Mary. What can you do these days?
Do you know what? It's never bothered me because cameraman is a generic term.
Yeah.
So in the same way that mankind is a generic term. So I don't think it's gender specific in that respect, but whatever people feel comfortable calling it, camera person, camera assistant, it doesn't bother me.
No. Well, you work on cameras in either film or TV. Let's go for that option, shall we?
Let's go for that one.
So you're currently working on Death in Paradise. You're in the Caribbean. As I mentioned earlier, I can see out the back. I'm not jealous in any way, shape or form. Palm trees out the back. I equally have palm trees in my garden. They're just not, well, they are real ones, but they're not surrounded by 33-degree heat, unfortunately. So yeah, it's not quite the same. So how is island life in Death in Paradise? Not necessarily the storylines, because I know you can't tell us any of that, but how is it being in the Caribbean?
Well, this will be my 7th season. And for each season, I spend about 6 or 7 months here. So in the last 7 years, I've spent more time here in Guadeloupe than I have at home in Swindon. You are away from home, you are away from family. Doesn't suit everybody, but this is such a beautiful island. And the people here are so lovely and so welcoming and so friendly that it's just a lovely place to be. The side of the island we are, it's a tropical rainforest surrounded by the beautiful sea, waterfalls. I just love swimming in the waterfalls, hiking through the rainforest. I know I'm making it sound wonderful. It is. It rains a lot, but the sunshine.
It looks quite windy as well.
It can get quite windy, yes. Yeah, we do get hurricanes here and tropical storms. So it's not always blissful.
And I'm guessing that must be quite difficult regarding filming, that presumably for continuity, if you have nice weather on one day and it's not nice weather the following day, you can't kind of carry on with that shot.
Yes, it's tricky. And even in the space of one day, you'll shoot your master wide shot in beautiful sunshine. And then when you come to do your closer coverage, suddenly it's gone overcast or it's pouring down with rain and you have to wait for the rain to stop or just somehow get away with it. So yes, it's the same in any country. It's the same in England. You always have continuity issues with cloud and sun. So in that respect, it's the same here. People assume it's always sunny, so therefore it's easy to shoot, but that is definitely not the case.
Well, it always looks sunny when we're watching it, you see.
Well, yes, that's because you don't get to see it when it's absolutely chucking it down with rain, that you can barely hear yourself think the rain is that loud.
So Death in Paradise has been running for a number of years, as we've said, and I kind of can't imagine how many people work on it. So you have the main actors, presumably, and then you have the crew that sit behind us. How many people actually work on Death in Paradise?
Well, do you know, I've never done a count. In relation to a lot of other jobs, it's a relatively small crew. So it's not a massive unit. We have roughly half the crew are UK based crew, and the other half are either French or Guadeloupean based. So we have a nice mix. So I don't know, at a wild guess. Apart from the actors, I would say maybe 60 crew, maybe more than that. So lots of crew are not on set. So, for example, people that build the sets or do what we call dressing props, they always go in before the shooting crew and set everything up, and then the sets are designed, and so there's all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, if you like, before we even get on set to shoot. And then you get all the people in the production office that keep all the wheels turning and glue everything together. So I'd say there's probably the same number of people on set as there are off set to make the programs.
And how many actors are there on Death in Paradise? I haven't watched it for a little bit.
We have our main cast. Let me do a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, our main regular cast are 5. And then when we have our guest cast, there's usually 4, maybe 5 of them. So the protagonists, if you like, or the suspects, there's usually about 4 or 5 people that come over for a couple of weeks with us to do their bit.
Yeah, I suppose it has to be different additional cast each time, doesn't it? Otherwise, it really is the strangest thing that the same 4 people are being suspected of murders all of the time. So,
of course, yes, yeah. There's always a different storyline for each episode.
And I'm guessing across the years, lots of different films and TV shows that you've worked on have all been quite different in regards to how, like, you might have big stars working on it, and are they kept separate compared to the crew, or kind of how is Death in Paradise? Is kind of the main cast, do they mix with the crew, or are they kept separate? How's that?
Well, Death in Paradise is unique in many ways, that because we all know each other so well now, we all do socialize together. But it's like anything, each department, you have certain things in common. So, you might gravitate to other people in your department. But the nice thing about this job is there is a lot more cross-pollination when, if you're out socializing or going on trips, or dare I say, the odd party. And yes, we all, it's quite nice because the banter on set is, for me, the most fun bit, because it can be quite brutal, hopefully in a nice way, though. We take no prisoners.
I mean, I'm ex-military, and I was chatting to somebody the other day about that. A lot of military people really struggle to come into civvy world because the banter, as we used to call it in civvy world, would be seen as being, let's call up HR. I don't know if it's kind of a similar type thing where you are.
I think so, because all my non-film friends, my dance friends, which I'm sure we'll get on to later, I always feel I have to temper my behavior and my language until they get to know me well, because they probably can't get used to the way my mind thinks.
But you get used to it, don't you? You get used to saying and stuff in a certain way. I mean, the old phrase of "swears like a trooper." Again, when I was in the RAF, it used to be that people would swear almost every other word, and I said, we don't actually talk like this when we're around our wives and girlfriends, so why are we doing this when we're around each other? And I actually created a different culture for the time I was in that we spoke what I would class as normally. I'm not saying that nobody ever swore ever, but it was more appropriate rather than it just being a throwaway word in a sentence. So I think everywhere is different. Definitely.
Yeah, I think there is an element of that. I think there is, not having been in the forces, but I think there is a certain similarity. Again, especially when you're away, you're away from home. All the people you're seeing are the people that you're working with, so they become your family. Like it or not, or maybe a dysfunctional family, but they are nonetheless your family, and you are thrown together for that period of time.
Now, you mentioned parties earlier. I can't let you get away with that one. Is there anything that's happened that's not necessarily public knowledge that you're not going to get in trouble for, that you could tell us about anybody that people might actually know that they maybe didn't know about before? Any
Well,
funny stories?
do you know what? This is actually going to sound very boring. Maybe many decades ago, when things were slightly different, there might have been things happening that maybe should not be published. But these days, it's just letting off steam, because during the week you work long, hard hours in a pretty brutal climate. So it's just a decompressed time. So that may sound terribly boring.
No?
Yes, people do maybe have a little bit too much and maybe end up in a swimming pool or slip it. Well,
Or your
yeah,
memory's going, I can see where.
nothing. I have to say, there's nothing totally outrageous.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. So what does a typical day look like in Death in Paradise then?
Okay, the process, we'll turn up. The director will have what's called a line run with the actors. So they will just go on the set and just sit down and do a line run of the scene we're about to shoot. Then they will block it, a private blocking between themselves to work out how they want to play the scene. Then they will call us all in for what's done a crew show. So we all get to see and get an idea of how the scene is going to play out, where everybody's going to be. Then the director of photography will light the scene for how he's seen, where we've talked about where the camera positions are going to be, what the coverage of the scene is going to be. And so we have to light for that. And then rig the camera, maybe lay tracks for a tracking shot. We do a lot of tracking shots on Death in Paradise. It seems they like to see the camera moving and developing quite a bit, which is very much the style of the show.
Is that almost like the train tracks that we see sometimes of people,
Yes.
the cameras moving across?
Yes, exactly. So we have the camera quite often mounted on a dolly. A lot of other shows might have the camera handheld, which is a completely different look, but very much the style of Death in Paradise seems to be keeping it on a dolly and moving it around. That may change, a lot of shows change and develop their style over the years, but that's the way it is at the moment on Death in Paradise. Then hopefully we get to rehearse on camera. And if everybody's happy with everything, we then go for a take.
How long would that process take then?
It depends on the lighting. Sometimes the lighting can take a short amount of time. Sometimes it can take quite a while. Maybe it can take 20 minutes or up to an hour. But it actually all happens pretty quickly. It's quite good that everybody knows what they're doing and are very experienced. And our team of regular cast are brilliant. They are so easy to work with, and they haven't paid me to say that. But they can embrace short notice changes and incorporate it within their characters. They are just a dream to work with, so easy to work with. And if they hear me say that, I just hope they don't hear me say that, because it will just go to their head.
Oh, you never know who listens to these types of things, Mary, I'm afraid. So what's your start time in the morning then on a typical day?
On a regular day, our hours have changed slightly this year because there is a new union agreement in place, which is lovely. But regular hours, certainly on this block, we work from, well, what we call a unit call is 7:30 in the morning. Other people start earlier than that to be ready to get all our camera gear in, or makeup and costumes start earlier to get all the actors ready. But then we should all be on set, ready to work, as it were, at 7:30 in the morning. And hopefully nowadays we finish at 17:30 in the evening, but that's with a half-hour lunch break.
A long old day then.
It's quite a long day. Obviously, if we're shooting night scenes, then we'll start later in the day and finish later in the day.
No, sounds amazing. Now, after the break, we're going to come back and talk about a project that you and I worked on together when Mary was actually front of camera. So we're going to be talking about that when we come back after this.
Radio Bath, made in Bath.
Right, we're back with Mary Kyte, camera person, we've decided now, first AC, and also wine drinker. She's having some wine as well, which is all good. So seems early in the morning, but we're all good for that. Right, now we're going to talk about a project that we worked on together. Now, many years ago, myself and Zoe, my wife, we were asked to do a project for a Christmas video for a song, which was called Winter Wonder, which I'm going to play after this little link that we're doing right now. And Mary was one of the dancers that we chose to come and dance with us. We had 30 dancers in total, and we choreographed loads of different dancing to go with this. So my first question for you, welcome back, by the way, is how was it being in front of the camera instead of being behind the camera?
Well, I have to say that was such a fun day. Apart from it being pretty cold that day, I remember my feet were freezing. But it was such good fun. I mean, I knew the process, of course. But being the other side of the camera, by the end of the day, the adrenaline was still going, and I was buzzing. And I did actually have an appreciation for how valuable muscle memory is, because it was a long day and we all got very tired. And yes, feet were cold and what have you. But every time they said turn over, you were immediately in that moment I'm no actress, believe me, I'm a terrible actress. But in that moment, I went into the character, if you like, I'd invented for myself. Mark and I, Mark, my wonderful dance partner, we decided what characters we were going to be. So every time they said turnover, the smile was there, the face lit up, and it actually got easier with repetition rather than getting more and more tired. You were straight into the moment, which I found was not surprising, but just an interesting observation that I thought, yes, it is possible to do this.
Well, for those that haven't seen it, for those that haven't seen it, it's everybody was in Victorian gear. I remember I had Rupert the Bear trousers on, which were always very strange. And Zoe, my wife, had on the weirdest hat you've ever seen in your life. But yeah, I mean, one thing that we remember from that day is just how amazing all of the crew were, as in how many the crew that we were working with for our dancers. We had 30 people we were choreographing, we practiced beforehand, but the teamwork that everybody put in there meant that it was still to this day one of my favorite days of my life. I don't know if you feel very similar or not.
Oh goodness me, yes. It was such a blast, and yes, I can relive the whole day practically. Yeah, it will always stay with me. It was such a good day.
It was such a good day, and the video's been seen well over 1 million times now as well.
Wow.
Which is always quite a weird thing to think you've been watched that many times. And it's a really good song as well.
It's lovely. It's a lovely, heartwarming song, and it was a period piece as well. So it was just a lovely little piece of theatre.
Yeah, and it was filmed in Bath as well, which was all good, at the Tithe Barn in Englishcombe. They converted it for the day, put a massive Christmas tree up, and if you want to look at it, it's Florin Street Band, Florin Street Band, and it's Winter Wonder, not Winter Wonderland, but Winter Wonder. Now, I have a memory of you, Mary, which we've known each other for a long time, and I've never said this to you, and I thought I'd say it live on air, okay? And that I remember a memory from the Winter Wonder day of I was trying my hardest to dance away, and I saw you stop. And I saw you stopping, like, what's she stopping for? And I then very quickly realized that the camera had passed us and there was no point because the camera wasn't on us anymore. But I'm still there giving it everything, even though, of course, the camera had their back to me and they weren't watching me anymore. But you knew, because you obviously have your job. So on the day, how much were you analyzing kind of everything that was going on and thinking, oh, I don't need to try anymore, or I do need to try?
Do you know what? I can't remember doing that at all. I mean, it certainly wasn't a conscious thing that I was doing. So yeah, maybe it was just because I'm so used to the process.
Absolutely.
That in my peripheral vision, I'm, if you like, aware of what's going on. Although I wasn't always. If I was unsure, I'd make sure I'd stay in character, stay
Yeah.
dancing. What have you.
So what were your characters then?
Oh gosh, we decided that Mark, because he had that kind of posh hat, that he was a fairly well-to-do dandy, and I was not exactly a scullery maid, but a lesser kind of in terms of class structure, I was a lower class person that he was having a little bit of a fling with.
No. One of the really nice things they did on that day as well is they did a making of it too, which was always nice. And I had the one of my dreams. They do this on Strictly. They show the rehearsals of something, and then they kind of do the split shot, and then they go across into actually it being done live. And yeah, I was really fortunate that we were, because myself and Zoe, we were kind of, I suppose, the two main lead dancers on it. And yeah, they did quite a few of those, whereas this is how we were doing it in rehearsals and then flipping through it on the main thing. So that was always one of my dreams come true, I suppose, to have that done to me. So
well, I think you both did a splendid job, and in such a short space of time as well. That you created something really nice, and you both look stunning on the day, even if you were wearing Rupert trousers.
we really enjoyed the day. We were shattered afterwards for about a week. It took a lot out of us, but yeah, genuinely now we look back and it was such a great day. So yeah, do check it out on YouTube. It's Winter Wonder by Florence Street Band. As I said, I'm going to try playing for you now. So I know we're in May 2023, but there's nothing better than hearing a Christmas song right now. So yeah, here comes Florence Street Band and Winter Wonder.
Some have started singing, some already had a few jars. We all share a wonderful thing, all love what this season brings. A smiling face when Christmas bells are ringing, that chime with every beat of our hearts. At this wonderful time, the magic is ours. We've got Christmas on our minds and in our hearts, 'cause it's in our hearts. Winter wonder, dancing through the night till the sun comes up. Older, younger, just celebrate and have a good time. We all
This is Radio Bath.
Right, we're back now with Mary Kyte, camera person, who's currently in the Caribbean shooting on Death in Paradise. But now we're going to talk about a passion and a love that we both share, which is dancing, of course. So for those that don't know, I'm a dance teacher in my normal job, as well as, of course, hosting the show on Radio Bath. But Mary's also a fantastic dancer as well. So what do you love about dancing, Mary?
To be honest, I would say it's my raison d'etre. As a child, I would always borrow my dad's classical records and put them on the record player and dance around the room, as long as nobody else is around, as a lot of us would do. I had to dance for when I did gymnastics, but again, I was a very shy dancer. And I think I've always been like that, but dancing has always been a love. And I always loved the idea of partner dancing, where you can create something, create a dialogue with music as part of the picture. And then when I found out about initially modern jive, I learned modern jive to learn to dance with a partner and have a conversation with a partner and hear something with a partner. Since then, I've learned other dance styles as well, all to the same end. So dancing is always, and I think always will be, my passion and raison d'etre. It doesn't mean to say I'm particularly good at it, but it is just something that brings joy as well as frustration.
We were discussing off camera just a minute ago about how much I personally enjoy dancing with you. And I'm not saying that just because you're sat in front of me, although sat a few thousand miles away, but you are sat in front of me. And I genuinely do really enjoy dancing with you. And what I love dancing about with you is that it is what you mentioned a minute ago, a conversation. Lots of leaders or men try and kind of give a lecture, and they say, as a follow, you simply just follow whatever I'm doing. But what you do is you have a conversation with your partner, a dance conversation. You're not necessarily saying, what are you having for dinner later? It's a dance conversation that you're having. So how do you feel about doing that side of it rather than just simply following?
It depends who you're dancing with. For certain people, for certain leaders, they are only ever comfortable leading what they have in their mind and what they've planned, and you have to respect that, and therefore you're a dutiful follow. If you do try and insert some kind of interpretation of what you're hearing in the music, then it should be, in my mind, should be quite subtle, because it can throw the leader and therefore spoil the dance for them. But sometimes it's good to kind of push your partner a little bit, in the same way that it's quite nice if my partner can push me a little bit and introduce a new element to the dance or the concept. But the most fun is when you're both hearing a piece of music and bringing something out of that music into the dance you're having together. That for me is the joy. It could be naff, it could be stupid, but my God, it's so much fun.
Absolutely. It's very strange philosophy, but I often talk about the fact that leaders are actually in charge, if it's kind of, there's some space there, of only about 20% of the dance. And the follows are actually in charge of about 80%. Because in the main, when you get to a certain level anyway, the leaders ask the follows to do something at the beginning and the end of the slot, and the follows interpret or embellish how it's done right throughout the slot, which equates to about 80% of it. But most people aren't aware of that.
Well, yes, I mean, the theory is that the leader will introduce the direction from A to B, if you like, and therefore it's the follower that decides how they get there on that journey. So the leader initiates the journey, and then the follower develops that journey. That makes sense. I'm not sure if that's the correct way.
That's exactly what it is. But most people think that, that old phrase, if it goes wrong, it must be the man's fault or the leader's fault, couldn't really be further from the truth.
Yeah, Total rubbish, in my opinion.
We used to wonder why we were 30 ladies over all the time, and we're bashing these poor chaps, saying you don't know what you're doing, and then if it goes wrong, it's all your fault.
Oh my goodness, I have huge respect for leaders, because when I'm leading, it's I should do it more often. I should practice more often, because half the time I can't remember the vocabulary, if you like, so the number of moves, or the number of words in a conversation. But I have huge amount of patience and tolerance for leaders, because I know just how difficult it is, and therefore it's always important to encourage leaders and to make them feel comfortable and more confident, and to give them a good experience in their dance, because then they'll go away and they will come back and they will learn and get more enjoyment from it. And if they enjoy it, I enjoy it.
Now, Mary, remind us which island you're on again.
Guadeloupe.
Guadeloupe. How is the dancing in Guadeloupe?
I did a couple of years ago. I did start my own dance class.
Okay. How did that go?
With some success. It was a good learning curve for me in terms of teaching, because I did slightly alter my teaching style from people I'd learned from in terms of teaching. And I did find a system which, certainly for absolute beginners, which seemed to work very well. And I had my little group in my class, and they would say the time went so quickly. They would always come out laughing. They'd forgotten about work, and they had good fun. And to me, whether or not they came out as dancers is irrelevant. If they enjoyed themselves and stepped away from work, then that was my job done. But it's very tricky, because the hours we do are unpredictable, and everyone is so tired, myself included, trying to put together a lesson plan when all you want to do is just have a lie in and sleep and rest. But having said that, of our crew, when there is a party, if there is music playing, they will dance. They will dance quite wildly, which is lovely to see. It's not necessarily partner dancing, but they just dance, and they're having fun and letting go.
That's the great thing about dancing, isn't it? Is that I was chatting to a friend of mine recently who was kind of not feeling wonderfully happy. And I said, well, come along to dancing. This was at Bradford-on-Avon on a Monday night. And I said to him, come along for 3 hours. You are surrounded by people who are just there to enjoy themselves. It's a happy place to go to. And wherever you go dancing, like if you're at a party, for instance, and your people are dancing, they're just happy. You feel that kind of love of happiness, which is, I think, one of the only things that, dancing is definitely one of the things that gives you that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, relating to dancing then, what's your favorite type of music to dance to then?
Oh, good God. I would say so eclectic. It could be classical music. It could be R&B. I do quite like R&B to dance to. Something really funky. Maybe not so much power ballads, but pretty much anything. And most of all, I enjoy dancing to something I've never heard before.
Okay. Why is that then?
Because you're reacting to what you're hearing, rather than the knowledge of what's coming next in the song. You're going along with the music,
yeah,
rather than trying to predict the music. Does that make
sense? I kind of have both of that. I like dancing to stuff I haven't danced to before. Equally, if I have too many of those in a row, I then get a bit uncomfortable. So I'm like, I just need something I know, so I can kind of go back into a little bit of comfort zone and then feel like I know what's going to happen, so I can interpret it better.
I think that's probably different. Yeah, it's different for a leader to a follower. As a follower, I'm just responding to what I'm feeling from my leader, and also what I'm hearing and feeling from the music.
Yeah. Now, you used to do competitions as well. Are you planning on doing more competitions when you come back?
Not really. I think I have a love-hate relationship with competitions.
Why is that then?
Partly because we were just chatting earlier about imposter syndrome. So I do have a bit of imposter syndrome in my job, even though I've been doing it nearly 40 years. I also have it as a dancer. So that is probably not good when you're going onto the competition dance floor if you don't believe in yourself. So if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you. The only times when I have done well or felt happy with what I've done on the competition circuit is when I've stepped away from that and almost become somebody else or developed a character. If you like, in my head, I've pretended I am a dancer, in which case then you believe in yourself and you dance with the heart and you put it out there. And those are the occasions when I've actually done well and had a good result. But as soon as you lose that, if you don't believe in yourself, then nobody watching you is going to believe it. And I would probably give that advice to anybody. And I just wish I could take my own advice more often. Because maybe, you don't have to be a great dancer to be, you don't have to be a technically great dancer, I think, to do well. You just have to be a passionate and believe in yourself dancer. I'm just going to dive off at a tangent here. Because I had a ballet teacher tell me that, for example, probably the most famous ballet dancers in the world, Nuria Van Fontaine, that she said to me that they're perhaps not the best technical dancers that were around, but the chemistry and the passion that they had between them in the dance was what transcended the technical ability. And I've always remembered that, and I think that's very true. You have to dance with the heart.
Do you know, I've given that advice quite recently to a number of people to dance. I used to ever so slightly different, to dance from your heart.
Yes.
So I talk about that from a technical level in regards to, if you move your heart backwards, then your body and your arms would then follow, and there'll be a reaction to your body moving, but also having the connection with the music. So you're just one with the music, but also with your partner, and kind of having that same connection. And then all of those three things together should make it work.
Oh, that's an interesting point about, as you say, dancing from the heart. So that's where the motion of the body is generated from. That's a very good.
Yeah, so I use that. But regarding imposter syndrome, just a little story for yourself is that if ever I have to do anything Latin, then rather than saying it's Richard from Portsmouth, a bit like Kevin from Grimsby from Strictly, I always put on Ian Waite's hat. So ex-Strictly dancer Ian Waite. And I always just immediately imagine that I am him. And then all of a sudden the arms and everything, the body, the shoulders start to move, and off I go. But yeah, I'm Ian Waite when I do my Latin dancing, rather than Richard from Portsmouth. So, but yeah, and the other tip I always give to people, actually, so in my little studio at home, we've got big mirrors, and I always say to them, chop your head off. So if you look from the shoulders down, then you can actually analyze everything that's happening. As soon as you look at your face, then all of a sudden you become very self-conscious.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
So yeah, there are a lot of tips in the dance world, isn't it? It's all good. But what's the best tip you've been given then, or given yourself even?
Well, I think probably what I was just talking about a moment ago, and yes, I wish it was a tip I could take on board myself, which is to just be in the moment and dance with the heart. And it's just you and your partner and the music. And if that's all you have to worry about, then you're just in that wonderful bubble that may last for 3 minutes, but it can be the most magical 3 minutes for quite a while. I mean, I've just had the odd dance over the years, which will always stay with me, because at that moment, it was perfection. I mean, it may not have been perfection to watch, but in my mind, that what I had with that partner and the music was absolute perfection. What could be better than that? So if you can put your mind into that mindset, then the world's your oyster, I'm sure.
And dancing is simply amazing. And for a lot of people, they struggle to either go there or stay there when they get there. But once you get past that moment of it's actually quite easy to do, then as you say, you kind of get that connection to the world, which is amazing. Well, we're going to have a bit of break from music. When we come back, we're going to start talking about a few of the past projects that you've worked on as well. Before, of course, nobody forgets the all-important quick fire round to finish. So we'll be back with Mary Kyte after this.
This is Radio Bath.
So we're back with Mary Kyte. It's Richard Beauvoisin here until midday today on Radio Bath. We're going to talk about some of your past projects. You're currently working on Death in Paradise. We're going to go back to kind of over 20 years ago, and people won't be aware, of course, because they don't necessarily look at this, but I had to look at IMDb and type in Mary Kyte, and up you came. And it came up with all of these different things that you worked on. And I even messaged you, didn't I, to say, I'm just checking this is you, because you'd worked on so much.
Yeah.
And it was kind of weird that you were on IMDb, but there we go. But one of the things you worked on many, many years ago was the very first Harry Potter. So how did you kind of get to be on that, and how was it?
I have to say it was a great privilege to be on the first Harry Potter. There was a lot of excitement about it. It took a large part of that year. I think I was on the job for about 9 months. So it was very exciting because there was a sense of, well, there was the cloak and dagger element of it. So we weren't allowed, all the scripts were couriered to me rather sent through the post, and I had to sign for them. Everything that was unused, we couldn't throw anything in the bin. It all had to be destroyed and shredded. So there was a lot of cloak and dagger secrecy, but we were all very excited because we knew that this was going to be something big and something special. And I remember when somebody brought on set the first they composed piece of music for it, and we all had to listen to it, and we thought, oh wow, this is great. This is, it's a fairly iconic piece of music now. But it was so exciting at that time. And it was before the big Harry Potter machinery, the Warner Brothers Harry Potter machinery had kind of kicked in and made it into the product that it is now. So all the young actors, Dan Radcliffe was just, a young boy.
He's tiny, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. And I worked with him some years later after that. So we're remembering when how he was then, and then I worked with him as an adult, and in many ways he hadn't changed. He can talk for England. He loves to chat, but he was such a nice boy, such a nice man. His father was his chaperone, and he made sure that he wasn't isolated, if you like, or shut away from everyone else, the crew and on set. So he was very much, his father made sure that he saw his school friends a lot, that he mixed in with all of us on the crew as on set, and gave him this kind of level, because it's such, as a young teenager, it's such an important time of your life. So I give his father and Dan himself credit for staying a very balanced and a real person, because this industry can do weird stuff. They can turn normal people into monsters, and you think you weren't born a monster, but often we can create these monsters by the way they are treated. That's probably being a little bit I'm probably maybe touching a few nerves there, I don't know. But this is just my observation of the industry.
It's really difficult, isn't it? When you are a star, I suppose, then quite often what you'll have is a lot of people around you telling you how great you are all of the time. And therefore that will go to people's heads sometimes. It's inevitable. Certainly if you're a type of person that requires to have all of that fame given to you and that kind of appreciation, then it can change you, I would have thought.
Yeah. And you're treated differently. So therefore your perception of reality and normality becomes different. And it's so nice when, if you like, you work with big names and they haven't been sucked in by that machinery, if you like, that turns them into people that they're not, or people that they certainly weren't when they were, you know, younger, or when they were kind of new in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, they often see stars and then go, oh, they're just a normal person. So somebody that both you and I know, Mike Edwards, people know him as Eddie the Eagle. He comes dancing all the time, and we all know him as Mike. And then people then come up to him and say, can I have your autograph? I'm like, not to me, to Mike this is. And I'm like, why do you want his? Oh yeah, of course, he was a ski jumper. But you kind of forget that, and he's a normal person. Kind of, I suppose you've come across the acting world, lots of people that are still normal people, and as you say, some people that have kind of let it change them somewhat. So,
but also a lot of people have a reputation that goes ahead of them, and then you find out, well, actually that reputation is nonsense, or it could have built out of something fairly inconsequential. I've often worked with people who have been difficult, and then when you work with them, you actually find out, well, they're not difficult. They're just normal people. They just get, you know, annoyed or frustrated by the same kind of things that any of us do. But for some reason, they kind of get, you know, they get a reputation for being difficult.
well, it is amazing what people say.
So as I say, they're not being difficult. They're just people who don't suffer fools.
And it is difficult because when you are famous in any way, shape, or form, then people will talk about you. Now, I say I'm a dance teacher. I'm not famous by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, when you are on stage all the time, people inevitably talk about you, and they make up a number of different stories. And apparently, every person that's been on stage with me has been my wife, which over the years has been about 40 of them. So yeah, I've married all of them across the years. And it's like, wow, okay. So yeah, proper big stars like Dan Radcliffe, all the stories you hear about him, probably about a tenth of them are true.
But as they say, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Oh, yeah, let's move on from that moment. Now, something else you used to work on was pole dark as well. Now, that's famed for Aidan Turner being topless half the time. Did you work on those scenes, and how was his toplessness in real life?
Do you know what? To be honest, I can't quite remember. I did a lot on the first series of Pole Dark, and I did a fair bit on the last series of Pole Dark, but I didn't do quite so much in the intervening series or the intervening years. I think I did do one, yes, where he takes the shirt off and burns it.
So for the benefit of the tape, as they say in Radio Land, Mary is now, just so everybody can imagine it, having her hands down low and imagining ripping off her top just at this moment. So you'll be very pleased to know that she hasn't ripped off her own top. But yeah, that's some image that she's now got in her head of Aidan Turner ripping off his own top. So yeah, at least I've given that to you today, Mary.
Yes, because goodness knows what was going on in my mind at that moment. There you go.
So where was Pole Dark filmed again?
A lot of the locations, the tin mines and so on, were actually filmed in Cornwall.
Okay.
But a lot of the other locations were around Gloucestershire, Wiltshire,
Okay.
and all the studio stuff. A lot of the interiors were done at the Bottle Yard Studios in Bristol.
Okay.
So it was all very much kind of West Country, which for me was great because as I live in Swindon, it's all fairly easily accessible, apart from Cornwall, of course, where we all had to go down and stay in Cornwall.
Yeah, not quite as far as Guadeloupe though. So
quite as far as Guadeloupe, but it's still tricky to pop home for the weekend.
that is very true. Now, something else you worked on very quickly as well was Spooks. How was that?
Spooks. I did the first two series of Spooks. Started it off with a very good friend of mine who is sadly no longer with us. Her name is Sue Gibson. She was probably one of the first female cinematographers to be invited to join the BSC, which is the British Society of Cinematographers, and also the first female president of the BSC. She is an incredible mentor, very talented cinematographer, who also did a a couple of episodes of Death in Paradise. Sadly, I didn't do it with her. She is an incredible, inspiring woman. And she started off Spooks and gave it the look and the feel, which was quite new at the time. It was incredibly hard work, a very busy schedule to shoot because of the way in which we're shooting. A lot of the scenes were split with 4 images, if you like, 4 frames on the screen at the same time. But obviously each of those had to be shot separately. So you're shooting 4 different images to be transmitted at the same time. So that obviously increased the amount that you had to shoot within the episode. What was also interesting is that it was very much current and up to date in terms of events and real life events that a lot of the time we don't know about. So it was very exciting and a little bit scary in a way as well, because there's all sorts of things that go on that we don't know about or that we're protected from. So the amount of work that goes on that we don't know about to hopefully protect us is incredible. So I take my hat off to and have huge respect for those people. So I think there is a lot of reality in those first 2 series of Spooks than people may realize. So it's exciting in that respect. Yeah, incredibly hard work, incredibly tiring. We had some amazing cast in there and some incredible directors as well that brought the whole thing together. And I think it did turn it into a pretty, iconic series.
I used to watch it all the time. I thought it was a fantastic series.
Yeah.
I might look back on it now and think, oh, how's the focus on that scene?
Yeah, right.
Well, hopefully I won't
You
notice it.
It's wrong.
I'm sure I wouldn't notice it because therefore I'd just be indulged in the actual program itself rather than worrying about how the focus is. Now you're currently on Death in Paradise. How long are you got left in Death in Paradise then?
Well, we're very much at the beginning at the moment. We've just finished our 2nd week of shooting, and we go on until the end of October shooting, apart from a little 2-week hiatus in the middle. So there's still a long way to go yet.
Long way to go. And I don't know how the industry works, but do you kind of have your next project planned after Death in Paradise, or is it kind of back to Death in Paradise season 8?
Oh, my goodness me. No, quite often you can be sitting at home one day with a completely empty diary, and then an hour later the phone goes, are you free tomorrow? You think the phone's never going to ring, you're never going to work again, and then suddenly it'll all take off again. So it's completely unpredictable. It is quite nice to have things planned out. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's nice to have the surprise, but you cannot plan or predict your life at all. So you never know. I always assume that every job I'm doing is my last job.
So do you know what you're going to be doing after Death in Paradise?
Coming home and doing some dancing.
Coming home and doing some dancing. Well,
my next job, I have no idea. And if anybody, I'm always grateful if anybody rings me up and wants to work with me. I'm always grateful.
Well, you sound like you'd be lovely to have on set. So you'll be all good. Well, we're going to have a quick break for some music again. When we come back, it's, as always, to finish off the interviews, that all-important quick fire round. So we'll be back with Mary Kyte after this. Now, during our chat that we were having whilst we were in between links for the radio show, here's a bit of extra for you on the podcast. So Mary started talking about working in the BBC and going back to a particular project which is all about Alzheimer's.
Like, for example, when I was at the BBC, I'd be allocated to a job which you think is going to be just awful and depressing. And it turns out to be the most inspiring thing you've ever done. I mean, we did a thing about... before everybody had heard about Alzheimer's, we did a thing about dementia and the carers. And you think, oh, God, we're doing a thing about dementia. It's going to be awful. It's going to be hell. But it was the people this was a documentary thing, the people you meet who are just incredible. You think, these people, you just meet so many interesting people that are, formidable. You think, how do you manage with this? And how do you stay upbeat? And how do you keep your humor? And how do you analyze things in your brain? And another woman I met in Russia, in Moscow, when they were sent to Serbia, and her husband died out there of exposure, and she was obviously from the elite society, and there was a picture of her when she was 21 by this fabulous car, and she survived in temperatures of -30, -40. And we interviewed her, and she was her face was completely lined, really deep lines, and yet her posture, she was upright and she was proud, and she spent most of her life out in not Serbia, out in northern Russia, when the bureaucracy,
I know where you're on about.
you know what I mean. Anyway, my brain's gone. And this was in Russia, in Moscow, and it was days of perestroika, and she'd bake cookies for us, and she was a perfect host, and she was still proud, and she still had her breeding, and she was an incredible woman, even though she'd suffered unimaginable things, and she still had her pride and her grace. So yeah, I've met some wonderful people.
Siberia,
that's it. Not Serbia, Siberia. Yeah. My days in the BBC meant I was privileged in meeting incredible people. That it's just mind-boggling. And people survive, and people maintain their dignity through the most adverse things.
Made locally in Bath, this is Radio Bath.
So we're back now with our last link with the lovely Mary Kyte, and this is, as always, the quick fire round. Now, the guests don't know what these questions are in advance, except for the very first one, which is the same all the time. So, Mary, what is your favourite ice cream?
If I was going to have ice cream, it would have to be either Madagascar vanilla or coconut.
Good choices, very good choices. Are you tidy or messy?
I'm not massively messy, but I'm not overly tidy. But I'm very good at tidying up afterwards.
Okay. It looks tidy where you are, but is that Zoom tidy?
Well, you're looking outside, so you're not seeing the rest of the room. And no, it's tidy. It's tidy. I hate chaos and clutter. That's my brain.
Fair enough. Do you love or hate roller coasters?
Oh God, I love them.
You love them? Good.
Yeah.
What's your favourite roller coaster?
Scared, but love them. Oh, the one in Blackpool.
Okay.
Oh my God, yeah, the adrenaline rush on that. Brilliant.
Yeah. I haven't been back to Blackpool to go to the actual fun fair. I've been there for dancing, but not for the fun fair for probably 40 odd years now. So yeah, I must go back just to go to the fun fair actually.
Yeah.
At some point very soon. So excluding social media, messaging services, no music, do you have any apps or games that you play on your phone or computer to while away the time?
I'm addicted to I can't remember what it's called. Let me just have a quick look. It is called
Singing as well.
Yes. It's just called Wordscapes.
Wordscapes.
Yes, I'm at quite a high level, which shows you what a sad git I am.
Okay. Well, I will get to that, and I will say I play Homescapes.
Oh,
which I think is in the same ilk as Wordscapes, possibly. Maybe not. I don't know.
It's a bit like doing anagrams. So you're given the
okay.
letters and you make words out of them.
No.
It's the way you kind of see the words and rearrange them in your head to make the words.
Oh, fair enough. Homescapes is completely different to that. So,
okay.
But yeah, but Wordscapes, quite a good wordy type game. Fair enough. Do you make your bed in the morning?
Oh God, yes. Has to be tidy. Yes,
fair
has to be neatly done.
Good,
iron my sheets, iron my pillowcases, iron everything.
And are there any cushions on your bed?
One.
You're allowed one. What is your favourite breakfast?
It's actually something I make myself. I make my homemade granola and then mix that with a good quality muesli and have that with coconut milk.
All sounds very, very healthy. If you had to, What is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh. Well, it's one of two. It would either be Kirsty MacColl.
Which one?
Um, oh, the one with the football results. I've forgotten the name of it.
Go on, keep going. I'll try and find it out for you.
Yeah, driver. And it's England to
A New England.
no,
Is that the
not
one?
New
No,
England.
it's Fairy Tale of New York. In these shoes.
England to Colombia nil.
Okay. I don't know. Oh, England to Colombia nil. Oh, there we go. I'd never heard of that before.
Oh, it's a cool one. It's a cool
Okay.
one.
England to Colombia nil. Right. Well, that's the, and I always ask this follow-up question, but nobody ever does. Will you give us a burst now?
Oh, you shouldn't have kissed me. She got me so excited. And when you tossed me out, I really was delighted. So we went to a pub in Belsize Park, and we cheered on England as the skies grew dark. Oh, you shouldn't have kissed me because you started a fire. But then you turned out to be a serial liar. You lied about your status, you lied about your life. You never mentioned your 3 children and the fact you have a wife. Now it's England 2, Colombia nil, and I know just how those Colombians feel.
Oh, I want to applaud you. You're the first person to do it.
I can remember the words.
Oh, you did it very well. I'm generally just sat here. I'm just bowing down to you, Mary. So, so yeah, fantastic. Thank you for that. That's made my day. It really has. Favorite, and you can go away from Death in Paradise. You don't have to say that, okay? But favorite TV program or film?
Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, that was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah, I watched that.
That was just beautifully shot. I mean, I can mention a whole number of others, but that's the one that's uppermost in my mind at the moment.
Fantastic program. And last question for you, Mary. If you came back in your next life as an animal, which one would you be and why?
It'd probably have to be a cat.
Cat is the classic answer.
So cool. They don't care about anybody else. They do their own thing, and they're so full of their own self-being.
A cat is the most popular answer. That is.
Is it really? It's the first
last week we had a dinosaur a couple of weeks ago, which was quite amusing. Yeah, a cat. I love. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant answer. They just lounge around.
Yeah.
Get bed when they want.
Take you or leave you.
Yeah, that's just amazing. Mary, you've been amazing today. Thank you so much for coming on and spending time with us, chatting about your history and career in TV and film, and currently working on Death in Paradise, and of course about dancing. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. I could probably just chatter on for hours.
No, it's been absolutely brilliant. We hope to see you back here on Radio Bath at some point in the future.
And I look forward to another wonderful dance with you, Richard.
When you're back in the UK, we'll have to do that. Or you can, of course, invite me out to where you are right now. Either
Always
is good.
Always welcome.
Mary, thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.